All right. All right, you almost ready?
Let me grab my water. Okay. Now I am really ready. I am
Cool, cool.
completely ready.
Here we go. All right. Count it
All right.
down. What's up, y'all? Count it down in five, four, three, two, and one. All right, here we go. Hey, what's up, y'all? Welcome to episode 272 of This is the G Podcast. What's up, y'all? What's up? Yes, yes. We are your weekly recap podcast. We do news, politics, pop culture, and that piping hot tea with the one and only. She is here thanks to Amazon delivery. Tanya B's in the building. Give it up for Tanya B. Inside joke. Inside.
That's okay. Listen. Thank God there's no Amazon boycott this week. Whew. Okay.
Uh-oh. But they deliver. You know.
Yes,
Got
we
it.
did. And
So how was your week this week? How was everything this week?
it's pretty cool. It was, a short week. Of course, we had Juneteenth. And, I celebrated last weekend in anticipation of knowing I'd need that as a day of rest and recuperation on Thursday.
Right.
But there was so much going on starting last weekend up and through to this weekend. There's even the big Juneteenth parade in Philadelphia tomorrow as they prepared for the Welcome America festival, which has a lot of our friends are performing up there in the city of brotherly love.
Okay.
Essentially effective. You got Kendrick the Family Soul, Jasmine Sullivan, the GOAT, LL Cool J, holla. So it's good. I got to give it to Philly. That this year, I don't know if they have new producers, but they are really honoring the tradition. It started earlier this week, and it's going through, blending into July 4th weekend, Welcome America. Because that Independence Day really is not our Independence Day, but they included Freedom Day, aka Juneteenth, in the
Hmm.
festivities. So you can't be mad at that, and that's what it should be.
Yep. Yep. I'm going to go ahead and jump into it. I was going to do it after Syracuse Mike, but it is Black Music Month, and it's just you and I. By the way, Talib is on the road. Vi is traveling South Africa. I think he'll be back next week.
Oh
But
wow!
the thing is, it is Black Music Month, and I wanted to spend more time talking about Black music in this month. We know we got a lot of news going on. Michael covered a lot of that, but one of the things that came out this week, and I think you're going to mention it in the tea, but I definitely want to have
Oh,
something a little bit more in depth, is the Billboard magazine, their 75 best R&B artists of all time. They dropped that this week, and interesting. I have my take on it, but what was your take in general? What was your
yeah.
take?
My thing is, okay, we know magazines like Billboard have trimmed their staff down to the bare fall bone.
Hmm.
So, except for the OG Gail Mitchell, who I respect and who I would believe in knowing what her assessment of this list is, I just wonder, who are the people that made up this list? And I'll go into that, later on. And there were some people that might have been in the R&B genre that had shorter careers that are overlooked. Namely, uh, Atlantic star Wayne Lewis. People don't, we know their contributions,
Yeah.
but those R&B, although they didn't cross over till the end of their careers, a lot of us that not just radio and music people, there's people that are lovers of music. We
Yeah.
know, there are those bands like the Confunctions of the world who are, have always been overlooked, but all the mainstream may know is Kool and the Gang because they crossed over.
Right. Yeah,
So
I think it's tough, and I'll push back just a little bit on this and say, and rest in power to Wayne Lewis was,
yeah,
of Atlantic Star, but I think when you're in a group and you don't go solo, if your identity is part of that group, it's tough for this to make this list. If you're not because even Gladys Knight, if Gladys Knight had always been with the Pips, you know, uh, without going solo.
yeah.
Yeah, I think she still would have made the list, but I think it would have been probably a little bit more difficult if she had not gone solo. Because let me tell you why I say that, because I look at this list as a solo artist list. It's like Teddy Pendergrass. Teddy was
Beyonce.
part of, yeah, Beyonce, part of Destiny's Child, but their solo efforts, I think that's what really made them a part of this list. But with that said, I get your point. There are a lot of people we could probably debate all day who didn't make it. Overall, I think they made a good argument for the people in this list because they're going to base it on charts.
And
Billboard
what
had,
they know.
what's that?
And what they know.
Yeah, and they're going to base it on charts. They're going to base it on research, and then they're going to base it on exactly, probably the gut, what they know. Top 15, Stevie 1, Aretha number 2, Michael Jackson number 3, Beyonce number 4. You have Whitney Houston at 5, James Brown 6, 7, Prince, 8, Mariah Carey, 9, R. Kelly. We're going to talk about that. 10, Marvin Gaye, 11, Ray Charles, 12, Usher, 13, Sam Cooke, 14, Curtis Mayfield, and 15, Isaac Hayes. So here's my point. Okay, I think those are credible.
Yeah.
I don't see a problem with that because one of the things I had a little argument, well, not necessarily a discussion with somebody younger, and the thing I said to them was, current R&B has not put in enough work to equal the body of work of what these 15 people have already contributed. One even told me Stevie Wonder didn't really, he should not be number one. And I said, you name an album better than, what is it? My favorite album of
Talking Book, Fulfilling This First Finale, even Hotter Than July. But
I'm going to come out and say this, Tanya B, and I said it to them. Songs in the Key of Life has not been equaled or eclipsed in terms of, and I think it's Songs in the Key of Life is the greatest R&B album ever made. Period. As much as I love Earth, Wind and Fire, as much as I love the Commodores, as much as I love Aretha, I don't think there's an album that equals or is greater than Songs in the Key. Go ahead.
But a lot of these children, and I would suffice to say, a lot of the people that were at Billboard that voted were not even born.
Yeah.
When Songs in the Key of Life hit. And you also have to look at like the Stevie, the Aretha, the James, even the Marvin and Curtis Mayfield. A lot of people that were higher up on that list are standing on their shoulders. But if you don't know music, you don't know that.
Right. Because I had to get an education because the impressions are before my time. Okay. But I do understand Curtis Mayfield from Superfly, all the projects he did as a solo artist. Okay. And Isaac Hayes, there's no question, here's the question I have, and it's controversial. Okay. Do you think Beyonce should be above Whitney Houston?
I thought about that and I said, now here we go. Beyonce is, I got to give her, she's a total package entertainer.
Mm-hmm.
Whitney was a singer. She said, I can't dance, I'm not trying to. But when it comes to vocal skills, yes, I think up until her voice went, I think Whitney would rank above Beyonce.
Yeah.
But again, Beyonce's crossed over way before Whitney and really had a longer crossover career than Whitney. And again, you're looking at people, if someone is an 80s baby, they weren't really able to absorb, the greatness of the early, 1, 2, 3 albums that we knew of Whitney Houston.
Okay. Do you think R. Kelly should have been top 10?
Hell no.
Why do you say that?
Here's why I say that.
Okay.
Again, he stands on the shoulders of artists that ranked lower. Now, granted, when you get to people who were born the 80s babies and the 90s babies, and maybe some of the, maybe the very late 70s babies, and you get to anybody who was coming of age in, say, from 1990 on, yes, he is a part of the fabric of the soundtrack of their lives. So that's what they know. Some people have a challenge separating the music from the person that we've come to know that he is.
Okay.
And and for that reason, and it was, I mean, and he did put on other people, but if you look at the people that R. Kelly put on
Yeah.
early on, and it wasn't, I don't think it was just because she passed away. Aaliyah didn't have a really long career. You had the one hit wonders like Sparkle and people along that line.
Right.
But I think, I will have to give him credit, for helping to, I use the word very loosely, resurrect the careers of artists like Charlie Wilson and people like the Isley Brothers, and then you even look at songs that he wrote, for Michael Jackson, You Are Not Alone. Now we know what it really meant. But I just think that
top 20? Top 20?
He got into the list probably based on sales and R&B chart position. Because, we had the Babyface era, we had the R. Kelly era, we had the Michael Jackson era. Now, I'm not saying era is in the time. We just had those moments in music. We had an Aretha era. Now we're still kind of in the Beyonce era. We probably, I think, have come out of the Mariah era.
Right, right. I mean, I think it's tough to bring all these eras together and rank them. I think it's tough because every era on its strength is not as strong as, like, look at this. I mean, the 2020s or the 2010s, in my opinion, are not as strong as the 90s.
Oh, absolutely not.
Or even the 80s and the 70s. I think the 2010s, going into even we're in the 2020s, it's 2025. Beyond 2010, R&B has been in trouble, and you've got artists who are making hits still, but hip hop has really overtaken R&B to a point where a lot of the R&B can't make it without a hip hop twist. So I say that to say not every era is equal. So it's hard to put them all together and make a list. I think you have to do it by era, but go ahead.
It is, but
and when I say by era, I mean by decade. You have to almost do it by decade.
Yeah. But and even if you go back to the early, like the 2000s, in the mid, like 2005, a lot of this music, and I say a lot of this music that has come out since then, has again been on the backs of artists that are on that list because everybody's sampling everybody now.
Yeah,
a lot of this R&B that's out now. You look, I love Estelle. She's got a new record out. This record called Roses. Mind you, she's from over in the UK. I get that.
Oh, wait a minute. Oh, Estelle. Yeah, I mean, I sent my note out. I love that album. I think that album is amazing.
One of Usher's biggest records, Throwback. That's a 1972 little known Dionne Warwick song. They use they sample the track written by Lamont Dozier. Found me a millennial or an 80s baby who knows that. They don't understand that what they're hearing now was stuff that we've already heard.
Yeah. And we were talking about that because when I first heard the Estelle album, the first thing I sent that out, I said, man, this is amazing. Because it reminded me, the grooves reminded me so much of the post-disco era. When Unlimited Touch.
First Choice. Think about all
First Choice, all that vibe, that was coming out of the South Soul album, label.
Well, that's part of Philly because you have, Earl Young and Ronnie Baker and Norman Harris. That's the Philly sound if you think about it.
Yeah. So, you guys can take a look at the list. I'll put the list, the full 75 in our podcast notes. My verdict on R. Kelly, I think he's definitely top 20. I don't know about top 10. I even looking at Chris Brown, see, for me, and again, that's why I think decade-wise, if you ask me, okay, name Chris Brown's biggest hit, I got to think. You understand what I'm saying? Do you? Off the top? And I know, I know I'm going to get persecuted. For saying that.
You got me. But again, you look at.
I know Aaliyah. I mean, immediately I could, rock the boat. I could talk about, what is it? At Your Best. Well, it's an Isley song. I could talk about all the Aaliyah hits. But when I think of Chris Brown, I think of him as an entertainer. I don't think And I don't think of him song for song. Whitney, song for song. Aretha, song for song. Everybody in the top 10, even R. Kelly, they had listed Go To, I Believe I Can Fly. Quite frankly, I don't think of I Believe I Can Fly when it comes to R. Kelly. You know what? I think of that 12-play album.
Right, but see, I Believe I Can Fly was a crossover because
It was a crossover record.
Space Jam.
So yeah, it says it all in terms of who put it together, who put the list together. But I do think R. Kelly, Chris Brown, they sprinkle representation of current eras, if that makes sense to you. They don't want it to be an all top 10 classic list. They want to make sure there's some representation of, people who lived, who are really core 2000s fans or core 90s. They don't want to alienate that. So they can't put a Ruth Brown in the top 10. But go ahead.
Right. But there was a time when Ruth Brown was that girl. But again, and then you got people that have come behind her. I think everybody stands on somebody's shoulder.
Yeah.
But I think the artists that are out now don't realize how solid a foundation even the Ruth Browns and the Etta James, and you go to Aretha and you go to Whitney. You can 6 degrees of separation, but they're all standing on the shoulders of of those people.
Yeah.
But because they're not current, they're not top of mind, and the reason why people like Ruth Brown are not gonna rate that high, they didn't do charts back then. So they didn't have the mechanics, if you will, that they use now to measure all this stuff. So you're gonna find an Etta James or a Ruth Brown or people like that. Those men, and just some of those acts like that, they are going to be lower on the list because you had nothing by which to measure the contributions that they really all made.
See, and maybe, again, depends on your age, depends on the era that influenced you the most. I think Teddy Pendergrass is a stronger top 10 than R. Kelly.
I think Marvin Gaye is a stronger top 10 than R.
He is in the top 10, but see, Teddy Pendergrass is not even top 10. I think Teddy Pendergrass on the list is 25, and I'll double check that. We're gonna go to news.
Marvin was 15.
Marvin is number 10.
Oh, he is 10. Okay.
Yeah, he is 10.
And truth be told, again, you have the people like Usher, who I believe is also a full entertainer. Yeah. Don't get me wrong, but again, look at all the people he emulates. He stands on the shoulders of James Brown and Michael Jackson. So with him, I agree. He should not be ahead of the two of them because everybody knows he's just a combination of Usher, Michael Jackson, maybe a little bit of Prince, as evidenced by when James Brown was on the BET Awards and he put the tape on Michael and then he told Michael to give it to Usher. So,
yeah. Well, and I'm going to wrap it, and I'm going to say this because rule of thumb, because we got to go to news, and we'll come back and before we wrap it up, if I missed anything, we can talk about it. But the rule of thumb is when you take a look at music, when you take a look at what impacts you the most, typically that point when you're 15, 16 years old, that time frame you tend to remember the most. And in a lot of cases, people say that because you got your driver's license. You're finally in the car. If you're driving back in the day, millennials, it takes forever for them to start driving. Well, it's like, when do they ever start driving? But I'm going to leave it at this.
We have to, otherwise you've been in the house.
That's what I'm saying. I hate to be an ageist, but back in the day, hell, I was trying to drive with the learner's license, but today they're not in a rush to drive. I got nephews, I got kids. So, I know that when it comes down to it, they ain't ready to get in the car. But I'm saying the time that you get your license, you're in the car, you control your radio, you control your CDs, your total control. That's when you're influenced. So, think back to when you were about 15, 16 years old. Yeah. And that's the music that will influence you the most. Okay. No said. All right, let's go ahead. We'll do news with Syracuse Mike, and we'll come back on the other end. Thank you, Tanya B.
All right, cool.
News team, assemble!
It's time
for the week in news with Syracuse Mike.
A Minnesota man accused of a politically motivated attack that left one lawmaker dead and another wounded is now in custody. Authorities say 57-year-old Vance Bulger was arrested Sunday after a statewide manhunt. Bulger allegedly posed as law enforcement to enter two lawmakers' homes early Saturday, killing Representative Melissa Hortman and her husband, and wounding State Senator John Hoffman and his wife. Governor Tim Walz was one of the first to call it a politically motivated assassination. The shootings happened in suburbs near Minneapolis. Organizers of the No Kings movement say Saturday's nationwide protest drew several million people. Protests took place in more than 2,100 locations across all 50 states, including in Macon and Warner Robins, and even in some cities overseas. According to organizers, New York saw crowds topping 200,000, and over 100,000 turned out in Philadelphia. Even small towns joined in, like Pentwater, Michigan, where 400 protested in a town of just 800 people. There was also a military parade over the weekend, which didn't receive the attention that President Trump likely expected. Crowds were smaller than anticipated in Washington, and news coverage focused more on the horrific shootings in Minnesota and the Israel-Iran conflict. Sunday on Fox News, Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu pushed back on rumors that President Trump opposed a plan to kill Iran's supreme leader.
Actually, there's so many false reports of conversations that never happened, and I'm not going to get into that.
In a major ruling, the U.S. Supreme Court has upheld Tennessee's ban on gender-affirming care for transgender minors. The 6-3 decision, led by Chief Justice John Roberts, found the ban does not violate the Constitution's Equal Protection Clause. Justice Sonia Sotomayor, in a sharp dissent, accused the court of abandoning transgender youth to political whims. The ruling shields similar laws in 26 other states and marks a significant setback for transgender rights. Tensions are escalating as President Trump says he's still undecided on whether the U.S. will join Israel's war with Iran, telling reporters, "I may do it, I may not." He also continues to demand an unconditional surrender from Iran.
Unconditional surrender. That means I've had it. Okay, I've had it. I give up. No more. Then we go blow up all the all the nuclear stuff that's all over the place there.
Meanwhile, Iran's Supreme Leader Ayatollah Khamenei warned that U.S. military involvement would bring irreparable damage. U.S. intelligence says Tehran is preparing to strike American bases if Washington enters the conflict. President Trump remains optimistic that the U.S. could enter into negotiations with Iran and has set a timeline for a decision on whether diplomacy will keep America out of the Israel-Iran conflict. White House Press Secretary Caroline Leavitt told the press,
"I have a message directly from the president, and I quote, based on the fact that there's a substantial chance of negotiations that may or may not take place with Iran in the near future, I will make my decision whether or not to go within the next 2 weeks."
The comments have momentarily eased global tensions as fears grow over a broader war involving Tehran's nuclear program. Juneteenth was Thursday, and President Trump appeared to take aim at the holiday in a social media post, complaining about too many non-working holidays in America and saying they cost the country billions. Although he did not name Juneteenth directly, his post came the day before federal offices and banks closed for the holiday. Major retailers remained open as they do on most holidays. The White House said the president issued no official proclamation this year for Juneteenth, but acknowledged it as a federal holiday.
Hey, can we talk about non-working for just a minute? Okay. And let me mention this, and I'll let you jump in when I finish. I want to give you an idea, an update of Trump's golfing and the cost to taxpayers. Okay. As of June 2025, Trump's second term golfing the expenses are estimated to be at $30 million. 30 million. That's already okay. And it reflects frequent travel to his properties, the high operational cost, and it is an ongoing ethical concern because in a lot of cases he's self-profiting from these trips by using his own golf courses, and it's a burden on the taxpayer. And this comes from Huffington Post and the Washington Post. So I just thought I wanted to mention that when he talks about people not working on Juneteenth. I'm like, every weekend. And let me compare the first term to the second term. I said, what, 30 million so far? How many months are we in?
Not quite 6. Full on.
Right.
Not quite. just about 6 full months.
Yeah, not quite 6. So
Yeah.
the first term only totaled 151 million total in terms of golfing. Okay. The second term is on pace to exceed, you want to guess? Per day?
Per day.
Per
Isn't
day
it?
in office?
It's over $1 million a day.
Yep.
When you include security.
Exactly.
Over $1 million a day.
Over $1 million a day. So I don't think he needs to be having that conversation about what it costs for not working. Because I don't care what he says about negotiating on the course. Dude, it's not working. That ain't working. That ain't working.
That's self-serving. It's double dipping. And it's just, to quote Mike Tyson, it's ludicrous. It's just ludicrous.
So, I just thought I'd mention that since he's going to take a shot at Juneteenth.
Exactly.
Let's look at that. Hey, real quick, your thoughts on the war? You think, are we headed? You think?
What's interesting? I wouldn't be
into 2 weeks.
surprised.
Go ahead.
And I think that he's just gaslighting people because, there's this belief, I don't know from where it originates, that in times of war, the economy does better. The economy's in the tank right now. I do believe that right now he's taking 2 more weeks to make sure he and all his cronies get all their ducks in a row and invest in everything like oil, because the gas prices are going to go up just in time for your 4th of July weekend travel. So
Yeah.
I think it's just smoke and mirrors. And that I think he will pull the trigger just because I think part of his ego, and there are going to be a lot of innocent lives lost because he and his cronies wanted to make extra money. For people who don't work, they sure do make a lot of money. How about that?
Yeah, I agree. And I got to say, in terms of this, it just reminds me of 2003. We're going back. It's like, when they say a lot of this politics is cyclical. I mean, I look back on the Bush years. I look back on the Iraq War, how we got into it. A lot of the same, the weapons of mass destruction. I mean, it's almost like we're reliving that whole period again. I mean, we've done this multiple times over history where we've gone to war on faulty information. My thing is, why does Tulsi Gabbard, your intelligence person, come out and say, hey, we have no idea or clue of any weapons of mass destruction that they're currently building, and then you come out and say, or 47 comes out and says she's wrong, and not even give any evidence to prove she's wrong. It just reminds me again of what we went through with Bush and back in the Iraq War. It's the same path.
Go back to Reagan, even before Bush, we dealt with the Reagan foolishness and with his dementia, and Nancy Reagan really running the country.
Yeah,
that's scary too.
Yeah, so I think it's tough when you're dealing with probably the least trustworthy, narcissistic,
non-intelligent
administration. We're counting on this individual to make a decision in the best interest of the country. And really and truly, I said it last week, I just don't want us to have to go through another era of the Patriot Act again. Because honestly, based on the rhetoric, based on everything we're going through, based on everything we're currently seeing, I hate, that phrase, Yogi Berra, is deja vu all over again.
Yes,
Here we go. So I'm gonna leave it at that. I don't want to wish it upon us. I don't want to bring it up. But it's like it's like the train. The train is the lights are in the tunnel. I'm gonna leave it at that. You got anything else from the week? Anything that came up in the news that you saw?
It's really sad that as people are going to, peacefully protest for their rights, and even people with these Juneteenth events, why these rogue police departments are just dead set on really just turning over the apple cart when it doesn't need to be turned over.
Yeah.
And kind of arresting people for, it's like, okay, at the end of the month, you got to make your quota. You can't write any more speeding tickets. Let's arrest people and slap them with a fine. That is, it's difficult now, really, for me. I can't watch the news every day. It's difficult.
Yeah, understood. And that's truly understandable. But I got to say thanks to Syracuse Mike for keeping us updated. Okay. All right. Hey, you ready? Here we go.
Now then, children, it's time for tea.
It's tea time, y'all. Sipping the tea with Tanya B.
It doesn't get any better on the T side.
It's like some people need to learn how to handle their scandal. I'm going to start off with that. And you know, we have to talk about the elephants in the room. We have to talk about Tyler Perry and Derek Dixon and this $260 million lawsuit that this dude has been allegedly planning since 2019. You know, it's like, well, until he got hired by Tyler Perry, I don't know anybody that ever heard of Derek Dixon. And if, you know, there's all this stuff that he's saying about the advances and, you know, the sexual harassment and going to Tyler Perry's house and staying there and getting drunk. Well, and I forgot who it is, but he's got a girlfriend who's like very famous. Okay. So if you got the girlfriend and she got more coin than you, why do you need to go stay at Tyler Perry's house? It's not like you were homeless.
Yeah. Yeah.
You know? And I mean, it's a shame because Tyler, even if you don't like all of the content that he puts out, you got to give him his dap because he does make employment opportunities for people, Black, brown, and tan people, and he pays them well. You know?
Yeah.
And they stay. And you know, I haven't seen all of the text messages. I really don't want to, but I may have to, just so I can give you a comprehensive perspective of this. But it just seems like that's all people seem to do now is like, let's lay in wait and sue. If it was that bad, you stayed for what was that, 6+ years?
Yeah.
And you were in fear of not being able to get a job anymore? Well, you didn't have one before. This is why it's so important to save your money, people. But, you know, again, Tyler Perry, you know, has got to remember, like a lot of people, to really be careful. You have to keep your circle small, close, and loyal because you are actually, it's just like to me, driving while black. You have a target on your back and your front at all times.
Yeah, so true.
And if that's the case, if you didn't think you were going to get exposed, it's like, why allegedly send those types of text messages? Because even though you erased them, they're never fully gone. So I think there are more pieces to this story. You know, like he says it's a scam. His lawyer says this guy's trying to shake Tyler Perry down for money. You know, I just, you know, it's messy as all outdoors, but unless you have real, true receipts.
Yeah.
And it's not the first time Tyler's been sued. It's not the first time his name has been put into this type of activity. Remember the actor, the guy that Christian, what's his name? The one that wrote all the Kingsmen and these things sometimes.
And he eventually came out and said it wasn't. He because there was a lot of speculation. He never named names. And he came out and said it wasn't. So let's wrap it in a nutshell. Credible or not? Just credible or not credible? Your gut so far.
I hope not credible. I need to see more proof.
Need to see more proof. I got you.
His word against his word, you know.
I got you.
And at the end of the day, Tommy D, just like emails and text, they can be created. So, you know, you've got to show me the money. So
at this point, more information needed. All right. Gotcha.
And they'll talk about R. Kelly.
Gotcha.
Now, it's ridiculous because now he's talking about, he kept trying, he's using all of these stunts to try to get out of jail and be put on home confinement. I don't know if he has a home anymore, but the judges are getting really tired of him. Last week, it was the Aryan Nation trying to murder him. This week, they're trying to kill me. Allegedly, he was over-medicated by the prison staff while he was in solitary confinement. He gets rushed to the hospital. He got arrested in one of the best hospitals in this North Carolina prison he's in at Duke Hospital. But then they took, allegedly they took him back to jail against the doctor's orders. So it just, to me, it seems like with the judge, they're giving him the side eye. It's like next thing he's going to be trying to commit suicide to get out of jail. And I think the more he does that, the more they're going to discredit his motive. And at the end of the day, he's still acting like he didn't do anything to all these people whose lives he ruined, basically. Yeah. And then it's like, if he really thinks that Donald Trump is too rat's tails about him to pardon him, then he must be on some drugs. He needs blood thinners. I mean, I don't know that you could overdose on blood thinners. I don't know First it's high blood pressure, then it's blood clots, then it's always something. It's like the boy who cried wolf. So
Yeah.
if he ever really does have a legitimate health concern issue, I don't know that they're going to give, it's not going to be credible
Yeah.
because he keeps stunting and it's not working.
I just have to say, when I listen and I hear the narrative around what he's going through right now and what it says to me, and you kind of hope this is not the case, but it feels like the end is near.
Yeah, but see, he's
I'm
not
gonna say
saying
that. I mean, I'm not saying. I'm just saying when it comes down to, especially with him being rushed to a hospital for an overdose, because they wouldn't do that if there was not a reason, if he wasn't displaying symptoms in prison. So not that I get he did wrong, but what it says to me is there's something happening, whether it's on himself. Because a lot of this is it just seems to me it's psychological. There's some stuff going on in his mind that may push his demise up sooner, if that makes sense to you. I think it's something that's going on in his psyche.
Again, he's not famous in jail, so he doesn't get the pat. Like he went to is it King County? The jail, the county jail. It's different because they all knew him. Now he's a nobody in a sea of large, you were so gangster and talking smack, and now you're in that place, and now you want to start crying like a bee. But you got to understand, we just finished talking about him being the top 10 R&B artist of all time. Mm-hmm. You understand what I'm saying? Imagine what that does to your psyche in a situation like this. And that's not making an excuse, but what it says to me is here's a guy, top 10 R&B artist of all time in prison. That does a lot to your mind, to your mental state. So I think what he's going through right now, mentally, you can understand what he did, okay? But mentally, I think you can push yourself towards your demise mentally. Your state of mind can push your death closer or bring it closer to you. Yeah, but think about it. When you're a kid and you don't get your way, you do things to get attention. Yeah. I think there's a little of that going on with him too, because normally he's used to having his way. And you don't get your way when they tell you when to get up, when to go to sleep, what to eat, where to go, and everything else. So I think it's probably, it's like some people go through culture shock. So
well, I'm here to tell you, and I'm going to say this, and let's move on to the next story. I do want to say, Puffy's going to deal with if it goes down, and I'm going to finish saying it. If it goes down the way R. Kelly went down, he's going to have the same mental state. Having it all, and you can anybody. We can all say, well, you brought it upon yourself. Okay, but mentally, these guys, when it comes down to it, they're narcissists. It's like, can you imagine putting 47 in a jail? Can you imagine? Can you imagine?
I know. Yes, I can imagine.
I don't think. Look, considering, I don't think. I mean, you think R. Kelly's complaining? But believe it. What you got next time, B? Go ahead.
While I was talking about that, everybody kind of likes Fat Joe, and it really was distressing to hear about the lawsuits of him flying back and forth with his hype man. Now, Joe, Terrence Dixon, I'm sorry. He's claiming that he's suing Fat Joe because Fat Joe sued him for saying, putting the business out there, whether it's true or not. But, everybody has their stuff with them. But leaving your wife for a 15 or a 16-year-old, what is he? They're trying to say like he's a Puerto Rican puppy, flying girls allegedly, here and there, and then taking a 15-year-old and getting her a BBL. I'm like, are you kidding me? And then this guy, Terrence Dixon, is again saying, I fear for my life. We were out of the country performing, and he threatened to leave me there. Well, you couldn't get yourself back home. Really? Okay, Mr. Dixon. And talking about how he was forced to engage in over, I think, 4,000 sex acts. I'm like, well, you at the fucking...
Allegedly. Is this allegedly?
Allegedly, with a capital A, yeah. He was forced into that. And if you divide 4,000 by, okay, so you stayed there for 16 years and you couldn't do anything else with yourself? What is that? Come on.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I just, again, I say I need to see some real receipts.
Okay. So credible, not credible, right? At this point, it's too soon.
I'm saying BS. That's what I'm saying.
Okay. All right. We'll see.
I'm just saying BS. And while we got the elephant room, the puppy trial, I'll be real quick.
Okay.
We had the juror that got dismissed because he lied about where he lives. I think he's going to try to make a coin. I'm surprised that the jury has not been sequestered. Then they had the one they had to stop the trial one day because one person had vertigo, and another guy said he didn't even like hip hop music. He was more a fan of Latin Spanish music. Then you have the freak off tapes being shown in the courtroom. I understand a lot of the female jurors were just holding their heads in their hands. Some were crying. They could not believe what they were seeing. So, if his mother was in the courtroom, so be it. It's like, this is like in your face now. We haven't even gotten to the RICO and the drug charges. Then the guy, and I knew this was going to happen, Tommy B. I think we talked about this a couple of years ago. The guy that was the main drug dealer that actually was a drug mule. Now he's up there talking, but he got immunity in exchange for all of his testimony. So that guy never did a day in jail. He's talking about marijuana and what's that stuff they call hussy and Xanax and the pink cocaine. I mean, all of this stuff. He said, he's like, I did it, but can't touch me now. So I don't think that this trial is going to be over in 2 weeks, which will be on or about July 4th or July 3rd or 6th. Because I said they haven't even gotten to the racketeering in the sex trafficking part.
Yeah, I'm just curious when it comes down to, especially this week, when you dismiss a black juror and you put a white juror in, if the defense is going to come out and basically, which they're already starting, you can already see the pattern. They're coming out saying that it's a racially biased prosecution. Yeah, I'm wondering how much weight that's going to have in terms of maybe making this a mistrial, or because of them pulling a black juror, replacing him with a white juror. Go ahead.
And so so I just say I think everybody's kind of had like puffy overload, which kind of would you can just take one headline a day, but I think really just what we've heard about these freak off things. And then they got an audio of Kathy with this. One of the sex workers was gonna, I guess they taped it and was gonna expose it. She's like, "I'll cut you up in little pieces," and then he's gonna come and But at the end of the day, he's gone with the win and she got her money. So and then she got additional money, not just from him. She got additional money from the tape from the hotel. She got money from that too.
Yeah. Wow.
So, I still say Lifetime is just sitting back, chomping at the bit, waiting to do Surviving Puffy. There's already, every day, ABC, Hulu does one, Harvey Levin is doing them. And a lot of it is all stock footage, and they compile it from, whatever the days or the week's events are in the courtroom. But, then I'm waiting for Puffy's, what's his bodyguard, this guy, somebody Neil, who's on talking to anybody that will talk to him on social media. Gene Dial, whatever his name is. I'm waiting for they're going to call him up there because supposedly he knows where the bones are buried because he was Puffy's security for a while.
Yeah. Have you ever seen anything? Have you ever seen this many cases or potential cases at once? All the stuff that we're talking about in the T. Have you? I mean, just think over your years. Right. And so, have you seen this many at once?
This is more than all the back-to-back cases from the Michael Jackson estate. No, we haven't. Because you think back, Michael Jackson was like the first one to get sensationalized.
Right.
And, there have been others. But look, Roman Polanski and Russell Simmons said, we ain't going to trial. I'm just going to leave the country.
Yeah, there's so many pending and so many out there. It's interesting. Yeah. What you got next?
Harvey Weinstein.
Yeah, so true. What you got next?
I want to say, for those of us who talk about this whole Billboard list, those of us who were born during a certain era and had the blessing of being able to experience real music. In the 80s, there was a label, an independent label called Total Experience. I think Total Experience was put on the map by the Gap Band, first of all.
Yep.
And then by the duo. They were married at the time, but you couldn't say it at the time because in the 80s they wanted, the illusion of. But it was Calvin Yarborough, Haven, I'm sorry, and a list of people. They were Yarborough and People. And for those who may not remember, this song has been sampled 99,000 times, Don't Stop the Music. They had other songs, but that was their out-the-box first hit, and that was the one that really, I guess, put them into the R&B history book, especially in the 80s.
Oh, yeah. Big time.
They mean something to us, but you cannot tell me that they're on the Billboard list of the top 75. But anyway, Don't Stop the Music is a classic. You can still go to a backyard barbecue, you can still go to a wedding reception, you can still go to the club, and when they put on Don't Stop the Music, it's like a funk anthem.
And shout out to Dallas, Texas. I was fortunate to meet them because that's where that was their hometown, Dallas, Texas. And the thing I remember the most about that song in the 80s, the thing I remember the most, the puppets. Remember the video? You don't really want to stop.
And again, here you are making a video probably on a shoestring, but it was creative, and it's like you said, it's how many years later, and you still remember that.
Yeah, it was definitely like on a shoestring.
Yeah,
they just shot it in the club.
Yeah, they lived the LA lifestyle. Find out they didn't have what they were living in a house. Thought they had that was their house. It was the label's house. They thought the cars were their cars. They were the record label cars. Back then deals were just as bad then as they are now. But young people don't listen. Yeah. But they left Hollywood. They went back to, like you said, settled back in Dallas, Texas. They were actually working as praise and worship music directors.
Wow.
And then I don't know how long he was ill, but apparently he had heart disease. And that is a silent killer, and it kills more people of color than we could ever imagine. Yeah. But I'm telling you, that song with the synthesizers and the bass line,
So true. It was hot.
All I can say is classic.
Yeah.
Classic.
Yeah. Rest in power. Calvin Yarborough.
And that song, that was the only song they had that crossed over to the pop.
So true. So
aside from that, I got one more thing.
Go ahead.
But I been to many beaches as a child, and I don't swim. I can't swim. I never could swim. But anyway, for those of you that, and it's so funny, now you look at what they used. It was groundbreaking back 50 years ago, but the movie Jaws turns 50, and it was made up in near my old stomping grounds. A lot of the people who were in the movie were actual residents of that small New England town. But again, if you look at that time, with the whole thing with the blood and the Stark and everything else, that was so groundbreaking then. And when they show you how they made it now, it looks so elementary. But could you imagine, and I think did they do Jaws in 3D? I'm sure it's going to be back in the movies all summer.
They didn't do that version, the first one. They did a Jaws eventually because they did, sequels to it.
Right,
there was a sequel in 3D, but not the original. And I'll say, because I saw the original in the theater, I was young. I wasn't supposed to be in there watching it. Right. But, I went to art. Hell, you're looking at the extras.
I was up in the club with a fake ID, and you were at the movie theater.
I was supposed to be in there. But anyway, I will say, I watched it because if you're looking for a place to watch it, and for some reason you weren't, you couldn't if you weren't born. It is on Peacock. Peacock is showing all the versions. All the different sequels, but definitely the first one. And I watched the first. Even on Tubi. It's on. The original is on Tubi. Mm-hmm. But I'm telling you, it's still a great movie. I read the book. I was one of the kids who would read the book and go see the movie. I read Peter Benchley's Jaws, and they made some changes in it, compared, for the movie to make it. Steven Spielberg didn't like certain things about the book that he didn't put in there. Bottom line is, it's still a great movie. Richard Dreyfuss is still hilarious. Roy Schneider is and the crazy guy, I forgot his name, the captain who is.
Captain Him, but
all of them just did a phenomenal job, especially when they were on the boat. If you haven't seen it, check it out. It is definitely on Peacock. Let's go ahead.
IMAX in theaters. I'm telling you, it's coming.
I would probably go because it really it's still a good experience. It's a great movie experience. Yep. Yeah. Hey, let's take a break and we'll come back and we'll wrap this up. Okay, here we go.
Here we go.
It's time to wrap it up. This is the G Podcast.
Hey, y'all, don't forget, make sure if you're watching us, the QR code right in the corner of the screen, just scan that. All the links are there. You can leave us a voice message. You can follow us on Spotify. If you do follow us on Spotify, you'll be able to leave us comments. And definitely, if we have any polls, because typically, I think I'll put a poll up this week, a fun poll, find a poll that we can put up on this week's episode. But anyway, you can go up and interact with us a little bit more on Spotify, so make sure you're there. And don't forget, what you're watching is still out and about. I'm updating it, but I'm waiting on a couple of movies to hit so I can do it like a accumulation of what you're watching. But there's some good movies coming out definitely this summer, and I want to make sure I let you know what's up. I still want to talk about anybody out there watching this show. I love your thoughts, man. There's been some controversy about some of the things that they're doing on that show. So I'd love to hear your feedback. Okay, Tanya, but you got any shout outs?
I don't think shout out to Jacob Lattimore on the side. People kind of see him as he's, been in Black Nativity, and he was in that horrible House Party movie that came out a couple of years ago. Yep. But he started out really singing, but he's a very accomplished actor, and he's got new music out. So you know how I always support independent artists, supporting new music by Jacob Lattimore. The song is called Again.
But it's interesting because all those Luke, Luke
James, same thing. Luke James.
Awesome. I saw this guy live on the Tamron Hall show, and he blew everybody away singing live. So he's an amazing artist. Then you look at Jason Weaver, who's also on the show. He's an amazing. He's a singer. So there's a lot of talent on that show. But go ahead.
Yeah, but I think Jason Weaver never really got his dap yet. He played Michael Jackson in the Jacksons, An American Dream. But, we apples and oranges for oranges, I think. Just that Jacob Lattimore and Luke James have gotten more high-profile movie and TV gigs. So, just shout out to everybody out there. Keep grinding. That's the lesson in this whole thing.
Yeah. Go ahead. One more thing I want to mention about Jason Weaver. When he was in what was it, Lion King, or he played?
Yeah.
There was something. They offered him something on a song or a part, and they didn't offer him enough money. He took the part, but he negotiated rights to the music. You understand what I'm saying? With his mom. So he's getting paid.
Yeah. He's not hurt. We know, which is good. But that he's the exception to the rule, believe it or not.
Yeah, he took the part at a lower rate and negotiated a song, one of the songs in the movie, and he's getting paid for it because they didn't know if it was going to be a huge hit, and it wound up being a smash hit. Go ahead.
And that comes from the school of Jack Nicholson. That's why he got rich off of Batman. He took a lower salary and he negotiated video rights.
Yep, got paid.
Listen, people, this is how you get your bag. Okay. I also want to say shout out to a young lady I've come to know, and she really is she's doing it. Shout out to my girl Monet out in the Bay Area, and she checks us out too. And I gotta say, shout out to my posse in New Jersey. They've been liking and subscribing and sharing the podcast, so shout out to them. And
awesome.
Shout out to my DMV people. I'm going back home to Boston next month. I can't wait. So
wow, there you go.
The girl's coming home.
Beantown. What's up?
Yeah. That's
All
about
right.
it. No, wait, one more. Shout out
Okay,
to
go
my mama. Shout out to my mama and them. You know how we do.
Good stuff. Good stuff. Hey, I wanna do something, and I don't typically do it on the show.
Okay.
My birthday was not this week, a couple of weeks ago on the 7th, and some folks shouted me out, and one of my friends shouted me out and said, "Hey, I want you to check out a podcast." I shouted you out, and I went back and I played it. So I want to play it for you guys. Just share what I saw. Here we go.
You're like, whatever.
No,
'cause you
I'm going to
would
give some
switch up the
props to
CDs
somebody
or
right
whatever.
now. Yeah, but I'm going to give some props right now. So when I was in college, I could mix records, mix the beats, right? Never missed a beat. But I didn't know anything about some of the timing. So my homeboy, his name was Thomas Bacote, B-A-C-O-T-E. Good guy. He has a podcast too on LinkedIn. I think it's business related, but just a good dude, gentleman. So he would come out to the DJ booth in the afternoons, and he started teaching me some tricks with mixing. He taught me all kind of stuff, man. When you hear any song in the world, it has 4/8 counts, and 4/8 counts for the vocals, the chorus, all those things. You got to line those 4/8 counts with the next song. So when the one word stops, the next word starts in the next song. But if you don't align those, then it starts singing over each other, and it mixed up unless you did those kind of mixes. So he taught me that, and I became 100 times better at DJing when he taught me that. And he'd come around and taught me some, because he was really good. I mean, he was really good. Look up Thomas Bacote. He was a good dude, but he taught me some DJ tricks with 2 records, how to mix, scratch, do some backwards. I mean, just all kind of stuff. I wasn't really that good at doing a lot of them, but I learned some of the ones that got a lot of attention.
How did you meet
some
him?
Tricks. We went to Troy together.
Okay.
So he's the one that really was inspiring to me, because I was like, dang, I want to be as good as him, because he would come in and I would let him come in and mix it at the club, and we were live, and I was watching him. He's like, damn, he's so smooth, man. He played every song. He worked it. He never missed a beat. And I was like,
Yeah, that's
golly.
crazy. The timing of it all.
I got so
Jazzed
scared.
up. Oh, scared.
But he was going to take my job.
Oh, right. You're like biting at your nails. Like,
but just a really good dude. He was really good. I love being around him. But he's still out there. Y'all check out his podcast.
we should.
Anyway,
but before you go further, we are talking about our.
Hey, I just wanted to shout out Jackie Mitchell, man, but I don't play that for me self-serving. Jackie's going through a cancer battle, and that's Jackie and his daughter. They are chronicling his life and talking about things as part of his battle with cancer. And I'm going to put the link to his podcast on the notes because he also has a GoFundMe. He's been strong. He's been handling it, but he wanted to do something with his daughter to talk about his life.
Oh, wow.
And basically, again, it's a chronicle. So, when depending on how things go, he wants to leave her something and leave his family something and his friends something. So, I'm honored. And you just don't know. You just never know the little things you do. That's been 40 years. 39. Yeah.
When you were 12 years old, you were in the club.
I was 12. Yeah, I was 12. Yeah.
Okay.
So it's just you never know. You know what I'm saying? The impact you have on people. So I got to say, big thanks to Jackie. I'll have his podcast if y'all want to check it out. And he and his daughter host that podcast. And he announced a few months ago, or it's been within 6 months or a year, that he had a cancer battle going on, and you guys, if you can support his GoFundMe, go ahead. And I got to say thanks to, because for me it was always each one teach one from everybody that I was involved with. So definitely I didn't just learn about all that in a vacuum. I mean, Tony T in high school, guy who Talib knows, Scobie Newman, who was part of our record pool back in the day. Shout out to my my former partner in crime, who used to on the Wheels of Steel, Harold Banks. He's going through his own battle right now, and of course Mike Roberts at V and Ray Boyd. Those guys gave me my first shot to do a major market and spin and do mixes. So again, thanks Jackie, man. I appreciate you giving me a shout out, bro. You didn't have to, but I'm definitely appreciative and thankful that I had that kind of impact. I mean, honestly, you don't do it for the impact. You don't do it at the time. You understand? You know, you just kind of say, I always did it for the love of it, and I'm just glad to see it had impact on somebody's life.
And you know what else I would say? You never know what people are going through, because had you not told me that he was battling anything, that man appears to be perfectly healthy.
Yeah, he's been working hard. He has been working. He has been working hard. He's, of course, you go through that. Yep, the chemo. Yeah. Part of the name of the podcast is Bald because he lost all of his hair. Through chemo. But Jackie's podcast and the GoFundMe, I'll make sure that link's on the note page. Thank you, Jackie, man. Appreciate you, bro. Appreciate you.
Hey, can we give him a round of applause before we go? We can take 5 seconds.
Yeah. Let me go ahead. Shout out. Appreciate you, Jackie, man. Yeah, he said he shot me a birthday note and said, "Hey man, I talked about you on my podcast. Check it out." And I'm definitely appreciative and thankful.
That's what it's all about. I mean, really, that's what it's all about. Like you said, you never know how you touch somebody's life. You were just doing what you love to do, and here you come full circle.
Oh man, I was in the dorm every day. It was there was not. Oh no, I still got my cum laude. You know what I'm saying? I still came out with my honors. But I'm just saying it's like, for me, during that period where I had turntables, I spent time on them every day. I was rolling out the mixtapes and all that stuff. That was my thing. Oh yeah. If you know me, you know me.
Got this mixtape for sale, y'all. Got this mixtape for sale.
Hey, you know what? Got me through college.
I know that's right.
Got me through school.
Legally.
All right, y'all. Hey, I appreciate you. Thank you so much for all of you who support the podcast. Again, don't forget, y'all, go to Spotify and follow us there. Appreciate you. Hey, Tanya B, thank you so much again. Give you your applause for coming in. Soul Survivor.
I'm back.
Yeah, with that, y'all, episode 272 is in the can. Peace, power to the people. Y'all have a great week.
Fight the power. Go out here and protest.
Yeah.
Right.